How's going guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the overlord of the death and got harem? Part 2. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Naruto stood before Tinbeard who said, right sire, the first thing we need to do is fit your hand with a leather glove. Snapping his hand together twice, several dwarfs brought out several different color pieces of leather. Tinbeard said, these are some of the strongest leathers we have sire. Each has been enchanted by elf magic. Naruto blinked and said, I'm surprised to hear that considering how you reacted to Nori earlier. Tinbeard frowned and said, elves are tricky creatures sire. They have been known to enchant people with one hand and rob them blind with the other. Unfortunately, they are also the best magic users most can do business with. They are willing to sell fire magic to enchant items for a price. My people have done business with a few, but we are always cautious when we deal with them. I must be slipping in my old age not to have realized Nori was an elf when we first met. Naruto said it probably wouldn't have mattered anyways. Now what are these leathers and what enchantments do they have? Tinbeard said, each is enchanted to make them feel like your normal skin. With that enchantment it makes it where you can't tell you are wearing armor. Also besides that they are enchanted to never age or tear. Naruto said, I see. Tinbeard said, as for the leather itself sire, they are the hides of different enemies my people have faced. Naruto's face changed color as he heard this and said, so you're saying that these are from? Tinbeard said, creatures sire. In a bored fashion. Naruto grabbed Tinbeard by his neck, causing the other dwarfs to tense as Tinbeard looked at Naruto in fear and Naruto said in a calm cold voice, listen and listen well Tinbeard. I don't care what someone looks like. I don't care what race they are from. I treat each one exactly the same. I treat them as a person. You yourself told me that there are only two kinds of people in this world, those who are with me and those who are against me. That is all I see when I look at someone. I understand that there is killing here and I understand not letting something that can be used go to waste, but each should be given some respect. Not talked about like they were unimportant. Tinbeard said, forgive me sire. In a begging voice. Naruto let go of Tinbeard who gasped for breath and looked at Naruto for a moment going over the words he said and said, may I ask something sire? Naruto who was clenching and unclenching his fist nodded slowly and Tinbeard asked, why do you wish to give all creatures the same level of respect? Naruto took a deep breath and looked up at the sky and said, because I know what it is like to be viewed as a monster, as something that shouldn't be respected in life or even in death. That should be slaughtered like an animal. I was viewed that way by humans even though I was a human also. If you view those who are different than you with hate, disgust and disrespect, what's to stop you from doing the same with your own people? How would you feel if your people decided that the hide of a dwarf was better than the hide of an elf and killed one of their own to make them a hide and then talk about the one who died like he or she was an animal? Tinbeard as well as the other dwarfs who stood by were shocked by what they heard from Naruto, but as they began to think about what he said the more they began to respect Naruto. Tinbeard said in a humbled voice, forgive me sire. It seems that despite our age difference you are far wiser than I am. Naruto said, forgive me as well Tinbeard. I shouldn't have attacked you. I just become angry to hear and see such disrespect of something that at one time was a living being. Tinbeard said, if it takes you attacking me to teach me a lesson like you have sire, then feel free to attack me as you wish sire. With a small chuckle and smile on his face. Naruto said, very well. Tinbeard said, sire, if I may suggest, I would suggest this hide. As he pointed out a dull blue looking hide. Naruto asked why. Tinbeard said, because this hide was from one of the purest and noblest creature in the world. It is a sea dragon's hide. Naruto hearing the respect in Tinbeard's voice said, then I will take it because of your suggestion, but if it is such a pure and noble creature, why did you kill it? Tinbeard said, because the dragon was already wounded and tired from battle. The different pieces of a dragon are very valuable. That piece of hide we have there is worth a tenth of the gold you now have sire. It was just too good of an opportunity to cash in sire. Naruto frowned and said, I see, well I still will use it, but I think that had you offered to treat the dragon's wounds, then kill it, you would have gained a valuable ally and possibly something more. Tinbeard said, looking back you may be right sire, but at the time I cared more about wealth. Naruto placed his hand on the hide and they began to draw an outline. After finishing Naruto said, so what now? Tinbeard said, is there anything special you would like on your gauntlet sire, besides what Nat specified? Naruto thought a moment and said, I want to show respect to the dragon who hide you are using. Can you put a sea dragon design in it? That way when others see it, they know I understand that there is killing here and that people have to use what they can, but that they should also respect those they took from other than that I can't think of anything. Tinbeard said, then I will oversee the design of your gauntlet personally sire. Naruto nods and walked away. As he approached the door that would lead him inside he saw Minato leaning against the wall. He said, come. Naruto looked confused and Minato said, I wish to see how good you are. Spar with me. Naruto got an excited look on his face and began to follow Minato out of the castle. Once outside the castle, Minato said, "Come at me with everything you got, son. Don't hold back." Naruto smirked and quickly created a group of Kaga Bunshin who charged at Minato, along with the real Naruto. The next morning Naruto woke up with Nori sleeping beside him and he got out of bed very sore and thought, "Damn dad. I knew you were good, but I didn't think you could kick my ass that bad." Nori moaned as Naruto moved away from her and Naruto smiled as he heard her murmur his name in her sleep. Heading to the bathroom, Naruto took a shower and got dressed and frowned as he saw how bad his cloths were damaged and thought, "I'm going to have to get new cloths." As he left the room quietly. Arriving in the courtyard, Naruto saw Minato and his mother standing there along with Tinbeard and Naruto said, "Good morning." Tinbeard said, "Morning, sire." Naruto looked around and said, "Where's Nat?" Kushina said she left a few minutes ago to deal with the Browns. They started causing a disturbance, so she went to stop them. Naruto winced and said, "Poor guys. I've seen her idea of disciplining them." Tinbeard said, "Sire, I am pleased to announce that we have finished your gauntlet." As he held out a piece of red cloth that was covering something. Naruto moved over and pulled the cloth back and his eyes widened seeing it. The gauntlet was red but had a blue dragon with gold wings engraved on top of it. The knuckles were spiked and segmented so they could move. Naruto picked it up and turned it over and saw in the palm of the hand a blue sapphire ruby. Tinbeard said, "I had it dyed in color the way to show the dragon the hide came from." Amazed, Naruto slipped his left hand in the gauntlet and said, "Amazing Tinbeard, you and your people have done an amazing job on this. Besides the weight, I can't even tell I'm wearing anything." Tinbeard said, "Sire, at a request of Minato we added something special to your gauntlet. Clench your fist." Naruto did and two 20-inch spikes shot out of the glove out of the dragon's mouth and Naruto eyes widened and said, "Whoa." Tinbeard smiled and said, "We call them the dragon fangs. If you hit something, not only does it get the damage from the punch but also get bit by the dragon." Opening his fist, Naruto saw the blades retract back, making it where you couldn't even tell they were there and said, "Please inform your people I am very pleased with their work as always. You have shown me you are truly master blacksmiths again and again." Minato said, "Now let's go find Nat so we can deal with Kyuubi." When Minato, Kushina, Tinbeard and Naruto found Nat, she was dusting her hands together while standing on a pile of browns and Tinbeard said, "You are a strange gray, Nat. Most grays aren't physically strong enough to beat browns." Nat said, "Instead of running and hiding when I went to study like most grays, I instead beat the hell out of one of them as an example of what would happen to them if they bothered me, so they left me alone." Causing everyone to sweat drop. Tinbeard said, "I see, well, sire has his gauntlet now." Nat looked at Naruto left hand, seeing the gauntlet, said, "Ah, excellent, your majesty. To the Tower Heart we must go. Come Browns, we got work to do." In an excited voice. Kushina said, "That reminds me, where is your Tower Heart?" As they followed Nat and the Browns who were still bleeding from Nat's lesson. Humming to a huge pile of rubble, Nat said, "Clear the rubble." The Browns began to clear the rubble and everyone's eyes widened as the Tower Heart began to be seen and Minato turned and said, "You hid your Tower Heart in a pile of rubble." Naruto said, "Sometimes the best hiding place is in plain sight." Minato blinked and said, "True, but once the castle is finished I'm adding enough runes and seals to the heart room to make it nearly impossible to get to it." Naruto said, "I'm setting up some traps as well." Kushina, seeing the Tower Heart completely visible, said, "So what now?" Nat said, "Sire, just place your covered hand against the Tower Heart and began to send your energy into it. I'll tell you when you need to quit." Naruto nods and put his hand on the Tower Heart and began to send chakra into it and said, "That's something I'm still confused about. When I'm told to use energy I'm just using chakra, but what's the difference between chakra, mana, and life force?" Minato said, "You know how chakra is a combination of physical and spiritual energy. Well, life force is basically pure physical energy, while mana is pure spiritual energy. That is why life force is so important here and why many creatures want to get to the human world. In the human world people are 75% physical energy and 25% spiritual. Here people are made up of 75% spiritual and 25% physical." Naruto looked confused and Minato said, "Remember the Browns that Nat beat up? You saw how injured they were and yet as soon as they were ordered to they got up and began to move like it was nothing. It's because they have a set amount of physical energy or life force, as they call it here in their body. They use their spiritual energy or mana as they call it to mold their life force." Naruto thought a moment and said, "It's like when you train really hard and you are exhausted and should quit, but you want to push yourself just that little bit more. Your body feels like it can't go on, but you push through and do it anyways." Minato said, "Exactly. In this world it is easier to push your mind while it's harder to push your body. In the human world it's harder to push your mind and easier to push your body." Naruto said, "So what makes an overlord different and how much longer do I have to keep doing this, Nat?" Nat said, "It's almost there, sire." Minato said overlords are balanced, 50-50s. You're physically stronger here while you're spiritually stronger in the human world. Naruto said I think I got it, but it's still confusing. The tower heart was pulsing as was Naruto gauntlet and Nat said, that's enough sire. They have linked together sire. Naruto said good. As he lowered his arm and said what now? Nat said sire, before we do what Warlock Minato wants to do how about we do a test to make sure everything is working like it should. Naruto asked what do you suggest Nat? Nat said browns, line up. Naruto watched as the 4 browns lined up and Nat said sire, if you would place your gauntlet above each of their heads for a moment and think the word absorb, you should be able to drain some brown life force from them. Naruto eyes widened and said, but that will hurt them. Nat said you don't have to take much. Just a small piece is all you have to take. Naruto said I don't want to hurt them Nat. Nat said, but if you do it sire, then we can create a minion hive which will allow the browns to get stronger and also make it where you will be able to recruit more minions. Naruto blinked and asked what do you mean? Nat said with all the humans living in the human world, why aren't there more minions running around sire? Naruto said I don't know. Why aren't there? Nat said if you will trust me sire I can show you because explaining it will just confuse you. Naruto frowned and said fine, but I don't like it Nat. As he walked over and placed his gauntlet and thought observe. Everyone saw as brown energy began to float out of the minion body and Naruto quickly moved his hand away. The minion began to jump and ran away and Naruto looked at Nat who said, he will be alright in a few minutes sire. He's just confused, please do the others. Naruto frowned but quickly did the other 3 who each acted the same way the first brown did. Naruto looked at Nat with a frown and said now what? Nat pointed to the tower heart and Naruto looked and his eyes widened and said there's brown stuff floating inside it now. Nat said nearly everyone here either has brown, green, red, or blue life force sire. It all depends on what they were when they died as a minion. A few have neutral which is white because they somehow got it from something that was neutral. You have now absorbed a small amount of brown life force. If you already had a minion hive then you could create a new minion, but since we don't have one yet we need to make one that will do. Sire you see that boulder right there. As she pointed at a boulder that went to Naruto knee. Naruto nodded and Nat said place your hand on it and think brown life force and start sending energy into it. The gauntlet will sort the brown you have in your tower heart from your regular life force and send it into the stone and like when you first created your tower heart or your tower beacons, it will change into a minion hive. Naruto did as Nat suggested and when the stone began to glow, it changed into what looked like a brownish looking plant that was 3 foot wide like a pod that began to release a small amount of brown mist. Nat said excellent sire. Now you can either use your own life force to create a brown minion or use brown life force to create one. Naruto said I can create a minion with my own life force. In a surprised tone. Nat said of course sire. That is what you've been doing all this time. It's just when you chose to create a brown minion hive with brown energy you made it where only brown energy or neutral energy could be used. You can't use red life force to create a brown after all. Naruto said can I create a minion of any color with my life force? Nat said providing you calibrate the minion hive to your tower heart and have a minion hive for the color you are wanting to create. Many overlords have been known to drain their own minions of their life force to recharge their own life force. Naruto said I won't kill my people. Nat saw the brown come over and said watch the sire, you might change your mind after you see this. Naruto watched as the browns began to send their brown life force into the minion hive, making it glow with even more brown energy and then the wounds the minions had began to heal. Nat said a minion hive can only hold so many minions at a time sire. The one you have right now should only hold about 5 browns. The 4 browns here have now linked themselves to this hive like your gauntlet is linked to your heart. When they die if their human half is still alive, they will be pulled back to this hive and be respawned the first chance the hive creates enough brown life force for them to live or you give it the life force it needs to respawn them. Naruto said so as long as their human half lives these guys can't die for real thanks to this. Nat said basically yes. Naruto walked over to the minion hive and began to send chakra into it. The hive began to glow a moment before it stopped and Nat said excellent sire, you have now linked this hive to your heart. You can order the hive to respawn a minion from anywhere. Naruto said but that doesn't explain why there aren't more minions running around. Nat said because sire, a hive can only hold so many minion. Like a baby can't be born without a mother, a minion can't be born without a hive. The life force of a minion will float around as nothing but energy until it finds a hive. Once it does then a hive will spawn a minion until it reaches its max. Minions are territorial of their hive sire. If a hive spawns a new minion, then the minions who are linked to the hive will fight the newly spawned minion and if they don't prove themselves then the minions will throw them away and most likely move the hive to a new location unless they serve an overlord. Now that you have linked this hive to you, the minions know you're the boss and they will put it where you tell them to. Naruto asked what happens to the minion that gets kicked out. Nat said either they get stronger and live until they gather enough life force to make their own hive, find a hive they prove they are strong enough to join, evolve into another kind of minion, have their life force taken by another creature, or eventually get killed after their human half dies and reborn as something else. Naruto frowned and said, how do I increase the number of minions my hive can handle? Nat said, you have to either get an enchanted items that will increase your hive's life force, or you have to give a hive enough neutral life force to increase its total reserves. If you are thinking of doing the last sire, remember your own life force will be drained by doing this and you shouldn't have too many of any one kind of minion unless you want lots of senseless violence and destruction. Kushina said, I got a question, Nat. You said something about the hive creating its own brown energy earlier. What did you mean? Nat said, the hive is alive and is able to gather brown energy from unspawned minions as well as from those linked to it. If this was a wild hive then it would use that gathered energy to create a new minion, but since it has been linked to Sire Heart, now that energy will instead be deposited into Sire Tower Heart. The bigger the hive, the more energy it will create. Since the hive is a living thing now, it is doing what it can to protect itself by creating and offering minions a place to be spawned in exchange for Thyre protecting it, which is why minions are so territorial of it. Naruto said, really, then I guess I should increase the hive size. I figure it's like how I created it. As he placed his hand on the hive and began to send chakra into it again. The hive began to glow and get larger, and Naruto began to sweat and stopped and said, damn, that took a lot out of me. Minato said, of course it did. You may have large chakra reserves thanks to the seal draining Kyuubi life force into your own, but since you're an overlord now your life force doesn't recharge as you used to. You're going to have to eat and rest a little longer to recover physically, well you will be able to recover spiritually quicker than you're used to, and that is not just here. Naruto frowned and said, is that why I feel smarter than I used to? Minato said, yes, Kyuubi life force was hindering you, but now that you're an overlord it's not, at least not as much as it used to. I bet right now thanks to Kyuubi you are actually closer to 60/40 instead of 50/50 like other overlords. Nori, who walked up having woken up and getting ready for the day, said, do you know how confusing you all can be trying to explain things? I heard you all the way across the courtyard and it was confusing me, so I know Sire must be confused. Naruto said, am I that much of an idiot to you all? Thinbeard said, you're not an idiot, Sire, you just are uneducated on the ways of our world. There is a difference. Nori, who was looking around, said, a minion hive about stage 2 in development if I had to guess. Nat said, I think you're right. About 10 minions is all it can handle now. Until we get some other color minion hives as well as letting Sire learn to use them in combat, I wouldn't try to get any more. I can already feel the headache coming from this, though I am surprised that you could tell it was a stage 2. Not many non-minions can tell that. Nori frowned and said, the sect I was born into had a rule that any hive that became at least a stage 3 hive was to be destroyed in order to keep minions from becoming too large in numbers. Minions may not be strong by themselves, but in numbers are able to take down stronger creatures. Naruto bit his lip and said, I know this is going to sound stupid, but how were you born? I mean, I thought. Thinbeard said that everyone just evolved into something else. No. It is sort of like what you just did with that hive, Sire. When a male and female have sex they are able to create a new life like my son. I don't know how it is in the human world, but when this happens the unborn child drains a small amount of life force from his or her father, while most of it comes from his or her mother. If the mother isn't strong enough to support the unborn child for the time she is pregnant, then she along with the unborn child will die and their life force will reform as something else. With my wife I would give her my own life force to help her when she was with our son, sadly she didn't survive when we tried for a second child. Naruto frowned hearing the sadness in Thinbeard's voice and trying to change the subject said, how do we get other color hives, Nat? Nat said, you have to kill something and collect its life force. Once you get a different color life force you just have to create a minion hive like you did this one. If there are any floating minions of that color they will be drawn to the hive, or if any wild ones of that color who don't have a hive come across you and join you, then they can bond with it. Thinbeard said, but didn't you say that those browns served someone else? Didn't they have a hive to make them loyal? Nat said they did, but since they had been gone so long chasing me odds are another minion replaced them in their hive. With the way the other overlords use minions it's not surprising. Naruto said, since you're gray, is there gray life force? Do I need to do to you what I did to them? In a questioning tone. Nat's eyes widened slightly and looked a little scared and said, Sire, there has never been a gray hive to my knowledge. It is very unlikely that there are any grays floating around because of how hard it is to become a gray in the first place and how long it takes them to become a gray. Older greys like Gnarl also will betray and kill other greys who they see as a threat to them in their position. Nori said, like you. Nat said yes. Naruto said, Nat, what is going to happen when your human half dies? I mean, everything I know about minions is what I learned from you, and despite how violent you are toward them, I trust you to keep the others under control. Nat said, I thank you for your kind words, sire, and you should know that my human half has already passed away. The only reason I am still alive is because I am smart enough to survive until I came across you, and now that I am in your service, I don't have to worry anytime soon, which is why I am doing everything in my power to protect and serve you, sire. Naruto asked, but what does serving me have to do with anything? Nori said, remember the grass, sire, remember how it started to grow when it was in the presence of your power. Your tower heart is merely a focal point of your power, while your actual power floats like a bubble around it. All of us who are here now in that bubble are slowly getting stronger just from being here. We use our strength to protect and serve you, will you let us become stronger by sharing your strength with us? That is the power of the Overlord and why we are willing to follow you. Every creature in this world has one thing they know instinctively. The strong live, the weak die. Do everything you can to get stronger. Thinbeard said, she speaks truthfully, sire. Even if you had not spared my son or me or gave us a chance to join you willingly, once you proved that you were stronger than we are, my people knew that you had the power to destroy us, so it's better to serve and live in fear than to die. It was after you showed us your strength that you began to show your compassion, and my people started going from living in fear of you and started to follow you out of respect. Naruto frowned and said, I see. Minato decided to change the subject and said, so Nat, is everything working right with the gauntlet? Nat said yes, everything appears to be working as it should. I should mention, sire, that your treasure room, library, relic room and armory are all linked to your gauntlet. You can summon anything in those rooms to you, or you can absorb them like you did the brown life force, and your tower heart will send those items to the right location in the tower for storage. Minato said, including minions that are linked to the hives that are linked to your heart, right? Nat said yes. You can summon any living brown who is connected to your hive, or you can spawn one with your life force. As long as you are in their presence to order them around, they will serve you, but if they get lost from you, then they will be like a wild brown. Oh look, sire, we have a new brown. Saying the last in an exciting tone. Everyone turned and saw the 4 browns beating the hell out of a 5th that was fighting back with them. Naruto frowned seeing this and said, Nat. Nat sighed and said, yes, sire. Before she walked over and grabbed 2 browns and slammed their heads together before kicking another one. Turning, she picked up the last 2 and threw them into the pile of rubble. With all 5 browns on the ground, Nat dusted her hands and said, stand up and show proper respect to Overlords, Naruto. In a commanding tone. Thinbeard said, that's one way to show who's boss. With an amused look on his face as the minions all lined up next to each other. Naruto said, Nat, where would you suggest the minion hive be placed? Nat said, about that, sire. I have an idea, but I was wondering, what exactly are your plans for that moat we dug to get the resources for the castle? Naruto said, how goes that project, Thinbeard? Thinbeard said, we have the first one nearly done, sire. I've had one forge working specifically on that project, while the others have been working on the metal supports for the castle. Minato said, what project? Looking back and forward at Thinbeard and Naruto. Naruto said, Gigi gave me a set of books on basic sealing. And it was instructions on storage seals. We are already using storage seals and exploding tag seals on the catapults. I was thinking that if we just filled the moat with water, then someone would either bring small boats or someone who knows how to swim to cross it, so what I thought is, why not make a trap out of it? Thinbear is currently making a set of metal plates that will cover from the castle wall to about 2 feet over on the other side. That way if an enemy charges at the castle and they step on the plates, we can just have the plate seal activate and seal themselves, making it where the guys standing on it will fall to their deaths or at least be severely injured. I was thinking of putting some spikes down there also to make sure they died when they hit the ground. Minato said, not a bad trap. How do you go back to resetting the plates? Naruto said, unfortunately the plates can only be used once per battle. Once the battle is over, someone would have to go down and get the part of the plate that fell below that we can carry back to the top and unseal. Minato said, I see. Kushina said, why not have a summon seal that will resummon it and unseal it back in place after say 2 minutes. That way it can be used over and over again without having to manually reset it. Naruto said, I don't know how to do a seal like that. Kushina looked at Minato and said, son. I'm in Uzumaki, a clan who practically created sealing, and your father is a seal master himself, as well as his knowledge of runes. Something like that wouldn't be hard. Hell, we could make it where you have a false bottom halfway down, so if anything lands on it, they will be instantly summoned somewhere else. Everyone's eyes widen, and Naruto said, you can do that. Minato nods and Naruto asked, is there any way to set it up where the people who land on it can be sent somewhere else? One of my fears with this trap was if a child were to accidentally step on it and activate the trap and fall to their death. Minato got a thoughtful look on his face a moment, and Kushina said, I can place a modified summon seal on the false bottom that would take anyone who landed on it to a room where they would be knocked out as soon as they arrived by a modified sleep seal. That way if a child does fall in, then a guard could get them out of the room and wake them up, but if an enemy falls in they can either be taken and tortured for information or killed. Nat said that would work greatly sire for something I was thinking that I think you would like. I was going to suggest placing a cemetery down there. We could place it under the false floor. We can also put the minion hives down there because I know that the Overlord Gnarl serves has a minion named Mortis who is able to resurrect the dead with life force. All he has to do is have the bones of the one who died to do it. I don't know how he does it, but it is possible another minion might learn to do it or maybe a future ally. Naruto said I do like the sound of that because I don't like the idea of losing those who I care for. If we were able to bring those we lose back to life, I would gladly lose a little life force to bring them back if I can. Thinbeard said I've heard of those resurrection spells. They do work, but only as long as the person being brought back to life hasn't already formed as something else. That usually means that they have to be brought back to life within a week. After that the remains won't do any good besides being used for an ingredient in something else, like your gauntlet sire. Carefully wording how he said it as to show proper respect not to anger Naruto again. Naruto seeing and hearing this smiles a thankful smile at Thinbeard. Nat said also I was thinking it could be a place we can send those children who aren't strong enough to fight to stay out of the way should the castle be attacked sire. I've heard you talk with the dwarfs about Thyre fears for the weaker members of Thyre people. Minato said that is a very good point. Kushina said maybe set up a location down there for healers so the wounded could be taken there to be healed and be able to return if the battle lasts that long. Only problem is we don't have a healer. Nori frowned and looked down hearing this. Naruto said how long would it take to do what you and mom suggested dad? Minato eyes widen hearing the name Naruto called him and said a few days depending on how much they got done. Nat said sire, I just thought of something. Why not just get rid of the fake bottom and have it where anyone touches the plates instantly gets summoned to the cell? Naruto said intimidation Nat. If the enemy see Thyre comrades fall to what they think is Thyre death, they will then stop attacking that way and divert to another way. Instead of charging the castle they would fall back and work on long-range attacks and possible try to build something to make it where they can cross the plates without triggering it. That will give us time to prepare for them as well as plan a counter-attack. Kushina said I can't believe how good you are at this son. Naruto rubbed his head sheepishly and said Jiji gave me a couple of books that Nat used a spell on to shove their knowledge into me. Most of these ideas and strategies were from them. Nat said if those few books were able to help you this much sire, you should work on trying to gather more of them when you return to the human world. Minato said Kushina said what is it Minato? Minato said Naruto is able to bring Hiruzen and the elders here, could he bring someone from here there? Nat said of course. Heroes have been able to do it when they have gotten strong enough to go to the other world. It would just take sire a little life force to do so. Why? Naruto thought a second and looked at Minato before biting his lip and looked and thought some more and said there's something not right here. Everyone blinked and looked at Naruto and Kushina said what do you mean son? Naruto said if heroes can go to the other world and take people with them, then why with so many heroes in the world are they not in the human world more and why aren't the overlords? With as power hungry as the other overlords seem to be to me, wouldn't they do everything they could to get there? Why stay here fighting when they could go to the human world, gain as much power as they can, and return before Thyre missing is noticed? I mean the drain to pull the elders and Jiji here and back wasn't that much. As he looked at Minato. Minato got an uneasy look on his face and said remember the 75-25 thing I mentioned. Humans are 75% life force and 25% mana. In order for someone from here to go there you would have to use your life force to replace the missing amount of life force we have for me, since I'm basically an overlord myself, it would be maybe just a little bit more than the elders. For everyone else it would be double what it is for me most likely if I had to guess. The heroes and overlords must realize if they were to bring themselves and others with them, then they would have to waste a lot of life force to get there. Naruto thought and said that's possible. It probably also is a question about how much life force a person actually needs, because I doubt the amount of life force it takes to bring a Brown would be equal to what it takes to bring Nori. Nat said there is also the fact sire that with you using your life force to take any one of us there they will get stronger by absorbing that life force. Minato said, that's right. They probably fear having Thyre power taken. Naruto frowned and looked at Minato and said well I was thinking dad, if I gave you some of my life force, can you go back to Konoha? I figure with your skills you should be able to. The next moment Naruto was sent skidding back from a punch from Minato shocking everyone. Thinbeard grabbed his axe off his back and said what is the meaning of this warlock? Kushina gasped and looked between Naruto and Minato and said Minato, what's going on here? while Nori and Nat moved to Naruto's side. Naruto frowned, wiping a bit of blood off his face, and said, "You attacked me because you can't go back. Can you? In order to use Porto you have to picture in your mind where you want to go. That's why the other overlords and heroes don't go there. They don't know what it looks like to go back there just like you." Minato glared at Naruto, who said, "Like Nori looks like mom, you look like my dad, but you're not him, are you, Warlock?" Minato said, "What gave me away?" Kushina looked back and forward and said, "What do you mean, son? What the hell is going on?" Naruto said, "Dad is supposed to be a seal master, why is it that he seemed confused with the seals we were speaking about?" Kushina looked at Minato and said in a soft tone, "Minato." Minato laughed and said, "Foolish woman. I guess I can see where the idiot gets his brains if you can't figure it out when he spelled it out for you, but perhaps this will explain things a little more." As he was covered in smoke, and when the smoke cleared there stood a man in a suit of armor, but when Kushina and Nori saw the armor both gasped and stepped back in fear. Kushina said, "No, it can't be." Nori said, "It's him, sire. The hero who my people betrayed me to, but you're supposed to be dead." The hero, Minato said, "Stupid elf. I'm called a warlock for a reason. I fight strong creatures looking for one strong enough to defeat me before I take over their bodies and claim it entire knowledge as my own and absorb their life force. I came across this stupid human when he was looking for a way to bring you here. I really wouldn't have cared, except he has spent so much energy on it and found out so much useful information. I became intrigued. I figured if I could finish what he started, then I could summon you here and then possibly claim your body and power as mine." Since he believed she was here as a human, I thought fate was on my side when I had seen the elf first and mistook her for your mother, and I knew if I was to get you here, I needed both this body's blood and hers. Luck was on my side when the useless elf led me right to the real woman I was searching for. Of course I hadn't counted on the actual drain summoning you here was, so I retreated in case you attacked first, but then that stupid elf took you. By the time we found you again you had already gotten in a position to make you a threat, so I had to bide my time to find out where your tower heart was in order to defeat you and take your power as my own." Kushina clenched her fist and said, "You bastard." As she charged at him, but he deflected her punch and quickly grabbed her by the neck and held into the air and said, "Stay where you belong, bis. On your knees." Before he slammed her into the ground. Naruto, seeing this, screamed, "Mom." As he charged forward also. Warlock said, "Like mother, like son." As he deflected Naruto punch and grabbed him by the neck and said, "What, boy, think you actually had a chance? There was a reason I wanted to spar with you, so I could learn your fighting style as well as your speed and power. Now I can't figure out much about those seals this human knew, but one thing I know for sure. If a seal is damaged it's basically useless." As he pulled out a blade from his pocket and stabbed Naruto in the stomach where the seal was. Naruto eyes widened in pain and Nat screamed, "Sire." Tinbeard said, "Your Majesty, let him go." As he charged Warlock, causing the Warlock to throw Naruto at Tinbeard in order to slow him down. Tinbeard caught Naruto but quickly screamed and let go as red chakra began to come off of Naruto. Warlock said, "Yes, come to me, Kyuubi, show me your power so I may take it." Naruto's eyes became red as he screamed as his entire body became covered with thicker and redder chakra as his flesh began to peel away. Kushina woke feeling the pressure of the Kyuubi and her eyes widened and scooted away in a little fear as the Warlock laughed, and Kushina thought, "Fool, you have no idea what you have done. If Naruto or Kyuubi doesn't kill you I funking will." As tears began to fall from her eyes as more and more chakra began to come off Naruto, taking a rough outline of a fox before the chakra began to bubble, and quickly 2 then 3 then 4 tails of chakra appeared as Naruto became completely covered by Kyuubi chakra. The 4-tailed Kyuubi had wide eyes and a black face made out faux chakra. The Warlock, who had been laughing, began look a little worried while the minions were on the ground gasping for breath with looks of total fear plastered on their face. As the 5th tail of Kyuubi began to form, white bones began to appear around its body as it began to increase in size. Screaming loudly, Kushina grabbed both Nori and Nat, who were frozen at the dwarfs. "Get the funk out of here." Kyuubi about to emerge. As she began to run with both women over her shoulders. As Tinbeard ordered his people to grab the Browns and evacuate the castle, he thought, "My god." Once outside the castle, an explosion was heard as the back wall of the castle was destroyed as the Kyuubi completely emerged in all his glory. As it did, Naruto Tower heart pulsed with power. Across the world of the Negaverse, creatures of all shape and sizes froze in place a moment before screaming in fear, pain, and panic as a pulse wave crossed the land, setting grass and trees on fire, the skies to darken, the wind to blow savagely. The ground began to shake as the very balance of the spirit world felt the power of the Kyuubi in all its glory. In the mortal world, the Kyuubi was saw as a demon. Of course, in the mortal world, Kyuubi power was far weaker because 75% of it went to create its body and only 25% of its true power could be felt. In the Negaverse where 75% of Kyuubi power could be felt being released at one moment, only one word could be described by those who felt its power: death. Outside the castle everyone was gasping for breath, even Kushina and the others were on the ground frozen in place with eyes dilated due to fire mines shutting down from the Kai they felt. Inside the Kyuubi, the last of the body of Naruto was being destroyed. Naruto Tower Heart, feeling Naruto was in danger of dying, summoned Naruto to it, removing Naruto body from the inside of Kyuubi. Kyuubi roared in pain by the sudden loss of Naruto body. In front of the Tower Heart, the body of Naruto was on the ground being bathed in the energy. The Tower Heart began to send chakra through the gauntlet on Naruto hand into Naruto body to heal him. As Naruto body was being covered in chakra from the Tower Heart, the Kyuubi looked down, sensing the chakra from Naruto, and the Tower Heart glared and said, "Foolish ninja. You plan to steal my power from me and kill me? I don't think so. I'll devour you and your Tower Heart so that you will die a slow and painful death inside of me as I take back my power plus yours and use it to destroy all you hope to create and protect." As he opened his mouth and swallowed the Tower Heart before reaching down and grabbing Naruto by his left leg and jerked upwards, causing Naruto to scream in pain as he was jerked into the air as Kyuubi let go of him once he jerked him into the air. Watching as Naruto began to fall, Kyuubi opened its gained mouth and moved his head to allow Naruto to plow right into his mouth and down his throat in one move. Inside of Kyuubi, all Naruto could feel was pain as his body burned from the acids in Kyuubi's stomach as well as his injuries from being stabbed and Kyuubi chakra. Naruto opened his eyes and found himself floating on the surface of an ocean with a gentle breeze blowing across his face. Blinking, Naruto moved his body where the top half of his body was on the surface while his lower half was below the water. Looking around, Naruto thought, what happened? How did I get here, Dad? He Kyuubi. Feeling himself becoming depressed by what happened, Naruto losing his will began to sink under the water. As he sunk below the water, Naruto, the light of the surface got darker and darker until no light could be seen. Alone in the darkness, Naruto heard a female voice say, "Why are you here?" Naruto blinked and looked around and thought, what the? The female voice said, "Why are you here when those you have come to care for are in danger? Didn't you say you would sacrifice your own life force to save those you lost? If that's true, then why aren't you fighting to reach the surface? Why aren't you trying to find land to get back to where you came from?" Naruto bit his lip while trying to see anything in the darkness. The female voice said, "What about Kushina, Tinbeard and the dwarfs Nat and the minions? What about Nori? Are you just going to let darkness consume you while your loved ones are dying at the hands of the beast you held back all these years?" Naruto clenched his fist as he closed his eyes, and the voice said, "If you're strong enough to hold that beast back all these years, doesn't that mean that you're stronger than it is? Why can't you show that beast his place?" Naruto opened his mouth to scream only to quickly close his mouth as he began to gag on the water he drank. Picking with his feet, Naruto used every ounce of energy he could to reach the surface when he felt his feet as something solid before the female voice said, "Hold on." Naruto felt the water shoot past him quickly as he was pushed through the water. The water around him got brighter and brighter as rays of sunlight could be seen before bursting through the water. Gasping for breath, Naruto gulped in as much air as he could as he fell to his knees on the solid surface he was on his hands and knees on. As he regained his breath, he opened his eyes and saw that he was above the surface of the water a few feet as the water moved past him. Blinking, Naruto looked down and his eyes widened before he heard the female voice again, and it said, "The sea is beautiful, is it not?" Naruto took a moment glancing around him and said, "Yes it is. What are you? Are you the creature whose head I am on?" The voice said, "You ask what I am and call me a creature, but you claim you don't care what a being is. You claim you would treat them the same. So if what you said is true, then your question has no meaning, since any label as to what I am would be meaningless to you, would it not?" Naruto said, "I suppose so, but who are you and what about my other question?" The voice said, "Yes, you are on my head. As for my name, call me Leviathan." Naruto said, "Where are we and how did I get here? What are you going to do with me?" Leviathan said, "Remember how Nat said minions would float around until they found a hive, and how Tinbeard said that someone could only be brought back to life if they had not reformed? The plane of existence between life and death is called the far plane and is where we currently are." Naruto frowned and said, "How do you know what they said to me?" Leviathan dipped down into the water a little, causing the mist to spray up, hitting Naruto a moment before taking off out of the water and began to glide above the water. Shocked and amazed, Naruto's eyes widened as he saw all this and looked back and saw the size of Leviathan's body. Leviathan said, "Does my body not remind you of something? Something you've been in contact with?" Thinking a moment, Naruto's eyes widened and said, "The sea dragon hide, it's yours." Leviathan said, "Very good, Naruto, since I have chose not to reform as something else, when you took that hide for your gauntlet, it connected me to you. At first the connection was unnoticeable, but then with what happened the connection between us became too great to ignore. I could feel your pain and anguish and chose to see what was the cause of it. I have seen many things in my years, but you are truly something I had not expected to ever see again. Not since the age of the great beast Ragnarok have I seen a soul who was as noble as yours. Confused Naruto asked Ragnarok, what's that? Leviathan said, you heard about the great beast the king of the six kingdoms defeated. Its name was Ragnarok. The beast you know as Kyuubi only contains a small piece of Ragnarok true power. Naruto frowned and Leviathan said, but that is not something you should worry about right now. Especially with the danger those you care about is in. Naruto clenched his fist and closed his eyes and said, what can be done though? I'm dead. Leviathan said, just because that chapter of your life is over doesn't mean it's the end of your book. The question is, are you willing to turn the page and start a new chapter on a book far larger than the one you thought it was? Naruto's eyes widened and said, are you saying there's a way to save them? To stop Kyuubi and the warlock and save everyone else? Leviathan said, there is a way, the question is, are you willing to pay the price? Naruto said, anything. I'll give anything to save Nori and the others. Leviathan said, I was ancient even in the time of the sixth king. For years I have seen the decline of both worlds into darkness. I believe you are worthy of becoming the king of the seventh kingdom of the Negaverse. Promise me you will bring light to the world and end the darkness that consumes everyone. Do so and I shall give you my life force. With it you shall be reborn as something more powerful than either of us divided. Do you accept? Naruto said yes. Leviathan said, so be it. From this point on your life as the human Naruto Uzumaki is over. All ties that bound you as a human are gone. Use this gift I have given you to do what must be done to keep your promise. May the blessing of the dragons aid you. As she began to glow. Inside the Kyuubi, Naruto Tower Heart began to glow before a figure. As the figure completely formed beside the Tower Heart, the figure looked around before noticing a gauntlet on its left hand. Looking at the Tower Heart, the figure smirked before placing one hand on the heart while the other on the stomach of the Kyuubi and said, absorb. Outside, the Kyuubi laughed as it used its paws to slap the figure of the warlock back and forward into the remains of the castle walls, hearing him scream out in pain each time he hit. Warlock coughed up more blood and begged, please Kyuubi, spare me. I'll give you anything you want in exchange for my life. Kyuubi laughed at the warlock's attempt to save himself before he began to cough up blood himself, covering warlock in the blood. Looking confused, Kyuubi said, what is happening, as he began to choke on blood as his throat was ripped open from the inside out. Coming out of the Kyuubi throat, a figure could be seen carrying the Tower Heart before wings shot out of his back and he took flight into the air and flew outside the castle where everyone who evacuated the castle could be seen. Landing outside the castle near the group, the figure sat the Tower Heart down next to it before placing his hand on it and sending a pulse of chakra through it. As the pulse of chakra shot out of the Tower Heart, each of those who were on the ground from Kyuubi power suddenly found they could breathe again and couldn't feel Kyuubi power. Slowly they began to stir, and as they did, the figure said, Tinbeard, Kushina, Nori, Nat. Watch this for me. Nori and the others, hearing Thyre name, turned and saw the figure, and Thyre eyes went wide as they saw the figure looked like Naruto, except he was now taller and his arms, shoulder, neck, and the side of his face and top of his head had blue, red, and gold scales. The hands had claw-like nails and a pair of leather wings could be seen behind the figure. Nori, seeing the face and the blue eyes that now had gold slits in the middle of them, said, Naruto, is that you, sire? Nodding his head, causing everyone to look shocked, and Naruto said, yes, it's me, protect the heart for me while I go deal with Kyuubi. As he turned and before anyone could say anything took flight heading toward Kyuubi. When he returned to the Kyuubi, who had recovered from Naruto cutting its throat open, roared at Naruto before trying to pounce on him. Naruto, using his ability to fly, flew over Kyuubi attack and landed on Kyuubi's snout before plunging high gauntlet covered hand into Kyuubi left eye and said, absorb. Kyuubi screamed in rage and tried to break free of Naruto, but Naruto had grabbed the optic nerves inside the giant eye of Kyuubi, which was now shrinking in size as Naruto absorbed its power. Using the life force Naruto was absorbing from the Kyuubi, Naruto turned his head toward the destroyed castle walls and took a deep breath before breathing out a stream of flames. The rubble began to melt before starting to change and take shape as Naruto mixed in some of the life force he was draining from Kyuubi as well as his own. The figure began to rise out of the molten rock and metal. A black and red scaled dragon soon rose out of where Naruto was breathing as he held onto the Kyuubi, who was trying to shake its head to free itself of Naruto. Naruto began to speak in dragonic tongue, hear me, I am Naruto Leviathan, your creator. Accept me as your creator and master and I shall bestow upon you the name, Bahamut, King of the Dragons. Do you accept? Bahamut roared before speaking, so be it Naruto Leviathan, I, Bahamut, King of the Dragons, swear to serve you. Naruto let go of Kyuubi and took flight into the air and said, then I order you to attack the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the king of the Bijuu, and absorb its power as your own. Roaring, Bahamut took flight into the air with two massive wings before flying at the Kyuubi and biting into the neck of the Kyuubi while its body slithered around the Kyuubi body as it began to drain the Kyuubi of its life. Landing on the ground, Naruto saw the body of the warlock on the ground and the warlock began to back away in fear. Naruto began to stalk toward the body and said, "Warlock. You have lived off the lives of others like a parasite for too many years. Today I will end your existence." As he grabbed the warlock by the neck and lifted him off the ground. Warlock said, "You can't kill me. Even if you hate me you won't hurt your father." Naruto smirked and said, "Who said anything about killing my father?" As he bit his thumb, causing it to start to bleed before stabbing the bleeding finger into Minato's body where his heart was. Warlock tensed before he began to scream in pain, and Naruto said, "Did you know that dragon's blood is like the ultimate holy water? It rids the body of all impurities and heals all damage to it while returning the body back to its prime. Now that I have become basically a dragonic being, my blood is the same way. My blood is killing you while healing all of Minato's injuries. Pray that if you ever reform Warlock you never cross my path or I'll destroy you." As he unleashed a massive amount of Kai causing Warlock to whimper before passing out. Once he passed out, Naruto removed his finger from Minato's chest and watched as the wound healed. Looking to his right he saw the Kyuubi was now dead, with all was left was the corpse. Looking around, Naruto frowned and said, "What a day. I hope tomorrow will be better." Once the battle ended, the people of Naruto Kingdom began to return to the remains of the castle. Looking around, Naruto frowned and said, "All that hard work and time gone." Sighing, Naruto turned to the group that stood behind him and said, "'Tis a dark time in our kingdom, but the virus known as the Warlock is dead. I used my blood to purify Minato of it as well as heal him, so you can for the first time truly be united with your husband Kushina." Kushina got a hurt look on her face and said, Why call me my name instead of?" Naruto interrupted her and said, "I'm not sure I can still call you mother after what has happened to me. I am no longer human. I am a dragonic being now. I entered the far plane, the land between life and death where the souls of those who can be resurrected or respawned are. There I met the spirit of Leviathan, the dragon your people killed and used to make my gauntlet Tinbeard. Leviathan, being a being who was old even in the sixth kingdom of the Negaverse, was very wise. She granted me her blessing and asked me to bring about the seventh kingdom of the Negaverse. With her request and her blessing, I have been reborn into what you see before you. I have gained some of her great wisdom along with her power. I am Naruto Leviathan now." Kushina had tears in her eyes and said, "I don't care what you are or what you look like. You will always be my son Naruto." Naruto looked down and looked at his hands, seeing his right hand now with claw-like nails, and Tinbeard said, "You are still our king, your majesty. My people still serve you." Nat slammed the heads of the Browns into the ground and said, "Show respect in the Overlord's presence." Naruto smiled slightly and glanced at Nori, who walked forward and smiled at him as she took his hand and said, "I still love you and don't care what you look like, even though I do think this makes you a little sexier. Any woman who you choose to bed, sire, should care about who you are here over what you look like." As she placed her hand over his heart. Naruto blushed slightly and Nori leaned forward and kissed him on the lips. Kushina smiled seeing this, as did the others before they looked around at the destruction, and Nat said, "Sire, what should we do about the castle?" Breaking the kiss, Naruto looked around and said, "Nat, have the minions bring my tower heart to me." Nat said, "You heard the Overlord, move it." As she kicked a Brown to get them all moving. Smiling, Naruto shook his head and Kushina looked over at the body of Minato and said, "What are you going to do to him?" Naruto looked at him and said, "If I blame him for the actions of the Warlock, then I would be giving the people of Konoha justification to how they treated me. I won't kill him, but he will have to earn my trust before I let him do anything of value for me, and I may never be able to lower my guard around him." Kushina looked down and said, "I understand." Nad and the Browns returned carrying the tower heart and Naruto said, "Set it down gently." As they did, Naruto walked up to it and placed his hand on it and closed his eyes and began to concentrate. Everyone seemed confused at first until the walls rubble of the castle began to glow. Everyone's eyes widened and Nat said, "Sire, you?" Naruto, who still kept his eyes closed, said, "Yes, Nat. I am infusing the walls of my castle with my power. If the walls are attacked, the tower heart will be able to warn me as well as start repairing the wall, unless I order it not to. This will protect my castle and my people even more." As the walls reformed, Naruto began to pant and said, "That's all I can do." As he fell to one knee. Nori quickly moved to his side as she helped him get up and Naruto's eyes widened as he felt Nori give him some of her life force. Naruto started to open his mouth when Nori said, "That's all I can do for now. Just rest, sire." Naruto said, "Naruto, as my lover and friend, I do not want you to call me sire anymore. Call me Naruto, that goes for you as well." Tinbeard and Nat. A person standing alone is easily defeated, but a man who stands with his allies is not only harder to defeat but may come out victorious. "You both shall be my advisors on this world, while Kushina and Minato, as the most knowledgeable about the human world, shall advise me on it. Nori, you are my lady and my love. You will be by my side and I will always have an ear for you as well." Tinbeard's eyes widened and said, "Thank you for the honor, Naruto." Nat said, "Thank you, sire, but I refuse to call you that because the minions will see me doing it and think they can. They are stupid like that." Naruto chuckled and said yes. I have a few memories of leviathans of some pretty stupid minions. Tell me, have you ever heard of the minion peacock? Nat's eyes widened before she burst out laughing while everyone else looked confused. Nat waved her hand to hide the blush on her face and said, it's an old story passed down between wiser minions. There once was a brown who learned to speak who was named Peacock because once he learned to speak, he strutted around like a peacock bragging about himself until he was named Peacock by the minion master. After he was named that he thought that it was an insult on the size of his beep and would look for anything he could do to prove his beep wasn't the size of a pea. Anything and everything from herbal remedies to yanking he would do it. Naruto said from Leviathan's memories she seemed to remember that it was the last that ultimately led to his death. Nat said yes. According to what I heard, he got the idea that he could stretch it, so he tied a wire around it and jumped off a tower with a wire wrapped around his beep. His beep stretched alright though stretched right out of his body. He may have been named Peacock, but died beepless. A few dwarfs nearby laughed as they heard this while a few snickered. Naruto sighed and said well we have place for everyone to sleep, but all the work we had on the castle will have to be restarted. It seems. A roar was heard in the air and everyone turned to Bahamut who was flying in the air before he took a deep breath and began to breathe fire into the ground outside the castle, scaring everyone. Thinbeard said what is that damn dragon doing? Naruto said I have no idea. Come on, let's get to the walls. As he looked confused like everyone else before taking off and running for one of the entrances that would lead to the top of the walls. By the time they made it to the top of the walls and looked outside the ground outside the front of the castle looked like a lava field. Bahamut flew high into the air before diving back down into the center of the lava field, causing several to gasp. Once Bahamut disappeared into the ground Nat said what happened. A rumbling sound was heard causing everyone to look around before the ground began to shake and crack apart. A fissure of steam began to spit out of the ground before the ground of the valley itself began to split with more steam coming out of it. Lava began to shoot out of different points around the valley as the walls of the castle shook and Naruto grunted in pain as he felt his life force being drained, trying to keep the walls together. Screams of fear were heard as many stood in shock awe and fear of the cataclysm that rocked the valley. The ground in the center of the castle began to sink into the ground and a couple of dwarfs saw this and screamed, drawing the attention of others as they looked at the now deep hole in the center of the castle. Over the next 15 minutes the ground continued to shake and be destroyed around the valley as everyone either crouched down in fear or held on to what they could to support themselves. Finally the ground stopped shaking and everyone looked around nervous or thankful. Naruto looked extremely pale as he felt ready to pass out. Nori said Naruto, look. As she pointed at the hole in the ground in the center of the castle walls. Everyone looked to see what Nori was pointing at and at first all of them were confused before Naruto's eyes widened and said what the hell. As his improved eyes began to see a glow coming from the darkness of the pit. Before anyone could ask Naruto what he was talking about they also began to notice the glow and each watched as Naruto Tower Heart began to rise out of the darkness. As it got closer they could see the Tower Heart was on top of something but couldn't make out what it was until it nearly reached the surface. As it did everyone's eyes widen as they saw a huge glowing bubble of energy arising from the darkness. Once the bubble with the tower heart on top of it was floating in the air above the castle walls, lava began to shoot out of the hole until it reached the castle walls, causing Naruto to grunt some more as he felt the walls being damaged by the lava. The glowing bubble began to lower until it set on top of the lava and the lava quickly turned to stone. A low hum was heard before the bubble of energy began to move from the bottom of the bubble up toward the tower heart. As it did everyone's eyes widen and Nori gasped and said it can't be. Everyone turned to look at her and Naruto asked, it can't be what Nori? Do you know what is going on? Nori said, it's the White City. Thinbeard's eyes widened and said that's not possible. The White City is a myth. Kushina asked what is the White City? Looking confused. Naruto also looked confused and seeing that look Nori said, the White City was a legendary city created by the king of the First Kingdom and ruled by the kings of the Second and Third Kingdom. It is said that after the death of the king of the Third Kingdom, the king's wife who was an elder elf and Thyre Halfling son, used Thyre life force to seal the kingdom away in a place where no man would ever be able to touch it so that the spirit of the deceased king could rest easy, knowing his home was protected for all eternity. Thinbeard said it is also this reason why the elves are looked down at with such scorn and mistrust because some say they stole the city for themselves after the king's death. A roar was heard as Bahamut erupted from the top of one of the new mountains that had lava still flowing from it. Bahamut flew toward the castle and landed outside the walls. Naruto looked at Bahamut and said what have you done Bahamut? Bahamut chuckled and said in language everyone could understand and yet not speak you may be wiser and stronger but you still have much to learn. Shocking everyone. Naruto frowned and said what do you mean? What's going on Bahamut? Bahamut said the history of the world is recorded in ages. Do you know why or what an age is exactly? Everyone looked confused and Bahamut said we dragons have lived far longer than anyone could imagine. We are the recorders of history. It is our lives that are considered ages. When all the dragons in the world die it is considered an end of an age, but the dragons do not reform as something else. We choose instead to search the far plane for a soul who is pure of heart and noble, traits we dragons feel are who and what we are. When we find such a soul who has a reason to wish to return to the world of the living, we grant them our blessing, turning them into a dragonic being like you are now. In doing so that being becomes the evader of the dragons and a new age is born. Feel honored because you are only the seventh to be granted our blessing. Naruto gritted his teeth and said you used me. Bahamut said did you not use me to save your friends and loved ones? Did you not accept Leviathan's blessing? Do you truly feel that you have been used or tricked or do you feel that you have truly been blessed? Did you not use the gift you have received to save your father's life from that parasite? Remember the words you spoke to Tinbeard when you first met him about what is truly precious. Naruto frowned and said you could have asked me or told me the truth. Bahamut said, but what if you were not actually noble and pure of heart? What if you were just a power-hungry soul who would have done anything to gain power for yourself? We gave you just enough power and knowledge that you would need to stop Kyuubi and save your people. The best way to test someone to see what they would do with power is see what they would do with the power they already had. You could have drained the Kyuubi of all its life force yourself and killed your father, even though he was just a puppet to the warlock. If you had killed both of them then we would know that you were not truly who we thought you were, and the dragonic blood in you would have killed you. Seeing that you revived me and gave me the Kyuubi life force as well as saving your father, proved that Leviathan was right about you. Naruto bit his lip and said I see your point and the wisdom behind it, but what now? Bahamut said a new age has begun. You have been blessed with the knowledge and blood of the dragons. If you have need of us you will know how to revive us. Once revived the dragons will aid you with whatever your current need is and once done will give you a gift as thanks. They will then leave you and spread to the world to watch as the new age passes by. My gift to you is the legendary White City which was hidden deep within the core of the world where no mortal could touch it. Naruto said thank you Bahamut for your gift and blessing. Bahamut said I should warn you that when a new age begins, darkness always spreads to try and consume the light the new age can create. There are those who will seek not only you but also the dragons for our power, but also our knowledge. No dragon will go against you, but we will not fight all your battles for you either. We are a peaceful race as much as possible and wish to see only peace and prosperity. You will have to fight many battles and kill many in order to stop the darkness of the world do not be consumed by it. Naruto said I understand may the new age be a long and peaceful one. Bahamut said may your rule also be goodbye. As he flapped his wings and flew into the air. After he was gone Tinbeard said it's never a dull moment with you, is it Naruto? Kushina giggled and said Naruto name means maelstrom. There is nothing dull or calm about a maelstrom. A groan was heard causing everyone to look and see Minato sitting up and he looked around and said what's going on? Kushina laughed as she tackled him and began to kiss him like her life depended on it. Naruto smiled a small smile and thought thank you. Before he began to walk toward the entrance to go down into the walls and out into the courtyard. Nori said where are you going Naruto? Naruto looked back at her and said to check out our new home of course. Everyone's eyes widened before they looked at the city and began to follow Naruto, except for Kushina and Minato. After grabbing Kushina and pushing her away enough to get some air Minato said what's going on Kushina? Where are we? Kushina could only laugh as she pulled Minato into a hug and began to cry into his chest. Confused Minato began to return the hug and pulled her closer to him and thought, did I miss something important? So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.